Meanwhile, ministers of health in the SADC region will be meeting in Dar es Salaam next week to look at challenges of the health systems in the region. This comes after, at a time when the world is grappling with the challenges of the novel coronavirus, with 6 African countries having reported COVID-19 cases. The meeting will be preceded by the Ministers of Labour gathering today in Tanzania. Let me bring in our correspondent in Tanzania, Daniel Kijo. Daniel, a very good morning to you. Currently, all countries on the continent, I guess, are working hard to minimize the damage and the effects that might go along with this novel coronavirus on the continent. So the ministers will be meeting in Tanzania next week, the health ministers. Are they likely to come up with anything plausible in order to mitigate against novel coronavirus?
Good morning, Blaine. Thank you for having me. And you are very right and accurate that, yes, indeed, next week, the SADC Ministers of Health will be meeting in Dar es Salaam to discuss this deadly virus that has, of course, become a global threat. As it stands, you just mentioned that, 6 countries in Africa have indeed confirmed that they have cases in their countries. And now this obviously brings the 1.3 billion Africans at risk of perhaps getting the virus. Now, what we know so far is that the health ministers intend to harmonize and discuss plans to ensure that in the event that corona does attack the region, how can the health systems in each country work together to ensure that there's minimized and they mitigate the effects of the virus. We know that there's a lot of trade between the SADC countries. There's a lot of movement between countries, whether be it labor, with reference to this meeting today, or just travel and recreation. There has to be a collective effort to try and discuss. So as far we don't really know exactly the outcomes because the meeting hasn't been done, but the SADC Secretariat says they're very serious, and we're waiting to hear what doable actions the health ministers is trying to control the virus and it entering their countries.
So look, what we do know is Tanzania, where you are, is one of the strategic countries in East Africa, in the SADC region on matters of trade. How do you think the country there is handling the preparations for this virus?
Well, Blaine, I live in Tanzania, so I have witnessed some of the initiatives that the Tanzanian government has taken to control and raise awareness of the virus for its people. We know that at all entry points, because Tanzania, as you know, has ports and also has water entries as well as airports. So at all these centers, they have installed over 150 medical-grade thermal scanners. They also have trained about 2,000 health professionals in managing these kind of viral diseases that spread through viruses. We also know that the government mentioned that they have isolated Kigamboni Hospital in Dar es Salaam as the quarantine zone, if I may say, or the area in which, if cases are indeed confirmed, where the patients will be taken. Even at the Dar es Salaam Julius Nyerere International Airport, we know that they have isolated specific rooms to ensure that cases, if found, will not be allowed into the general public. We know that even yesterday, you might have seen it online, where President Magufuli has talked about not touching hands. He was meeting some political opposition leaders at the State House, and he did not touch hands. So this is just to show that the country is taking this issue very seriously, and they say that they are prepared in the event that a case would come to handle it appropriately.
Yeah. Look, experts tell us one of the biggest transmitters of the novel coronavirus is these things, our fingers. So it's basic hygiene, isn't it? It's washing your hands and cleaning the surfaces at this stage in order to get us prepared in case of any outbreak. So that's important there. Let's talk about labor. Labor meeting. The region, we know, is grappling with sluggish economies, with unemployment, youth unemployment in particular. Let's look at the agenda for the meeting of labor ministers. Are they, are people confident that solutions can be found to these pressing issues?
That's a good issue, a good point you touched on, Blaine, because the unemployment rate in the SADC region ranges from 9% to 11%, with the global average being 5.7%. Global unemployment rate. Now, the Tanzania's case itself, it sits at 9.7% of the unemployment rate. So, what we know is that this week the ministers are going to discuss proposals and proposals and policies that would that aim to sort of deal with this huge unemployment problem for the region. But as it stands this morning, we know that the ministers now will deliberate from now, after the meeting being opened, what needs to be done. We know that labor migration will be an issue to discuss. We'll also know that they're going to be looking at different ways in which youth can be incorporated in development. For instance, Tanzania is launching its national internship program today, a program that aims at bridging the gap between graduate skills and real-world sort of labor skills. So we know the ministers are looking to sort of transform this huge labor market that of young people between the ages of 18 to 35 into a catalyst for development.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much indeed. Important meetings. We will touch base with you throughout the day, I guess, in order to get an update with regards to what's happening there in Tanzania. Our correspondent in Tanzania, Daniel Kijo. Thank you.